Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners, and today's video is all about the top 15 players that I love. And in all of my drafts, I want to leave with as many of these guys as possible. And I'm not just talking about like the top tier guys that everybody loves. I'm talking about guys across all of the ADP and the ones that I love the most. So hit the like button for me because I've got a super special giveaway for today's video. But from one of my last videos that I did, Most Explosive Offenses, congratulations to Baker. Your comment was randomly selected to win a draft guide from that video. So make sure you send us an email, info@thefantasyheadliners.com, so we can get you that draft guide right away. Congratulations again, Baker. But the special giveaway for this video, a couple months ago, I tried to give away Jake's Nick Chubb jersey that's hanging up in his office. If you saw yesterday, he did a video where he took you through, like, you know, his office and all of his cool stuff. I don't want to say he's compensating for anything. No, I'm kidding, Jake. I would never say that about you. Only about your truck. But anyway, I've been trying to give away that jersey hanging up behind Jake, and you guys didn't hit the like goal in that video. Yesterday's video, he gave everybody a like goal of 1,956 likes to give away an autographed mini helmet of Jonathan Taylor. Well, today's video, Headliner Nation, do not let me down. We are busting past it. I want to give away that jersey. Let's one up Jake. So in today's video, 1,957 likes. And I'm going to give away the autographed Nick Chubb jersey that is behind Jake in his office to somebody who randomly comments on this video and signs up over at Pristine Auction. They give, they do all of our giveaways for us this year, and we give away something every single week. So make sure you head over to pristineauction.com, create a free account using code word headliners. They're going to give you a $10 deposit to start getting something right away, but more importantly, it's going to make you eligible so we can finally give away this autographed Nick Chubb jersey of Jake. So let's go ahead and do it. Don't let me down. Hit the like button for me. But more importantly, it's time to jump into it. Let's go to player number one. And these guys are going to be in no particular order, but this would not be a guys I love video if I wasn't talking about my boy, Joe Mixon. Joe Money Mixon, that is right, my man. He's number one overall in my heart, on my roster. I want him in as many possible leagues this year. Listen, Joe Mixon a couple of years ago, he got off to a rocky start, had a really good game, then got injured and missed the rest of the season. I was really high on Mixon going into that year. We doubled down here on the channel again last year and said, look, this offense is going to be too good for you not to invest in Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon goes out there and is absolutely killer in volume. 3rd in yards, 4th in touchdowns, 4th in yards after contact, 6th in runs that were 10 or more yards last year. So volume-wise, he was great. Now, he doesn't get as much volume in the passing game as we would like. However, that could potentially change this year. But the one area where it seems like Joe Mixon haters love to go to the most is the fact that there are times when he's not nearly as efficient as we would like to be. But he's always ran behind a garbage offensive line. And now the Cincinnati Bengals have put together one of the best offensive lines in all of football. So get ready for the volume. Get ready for the touchdowns. Get ready for perhaps maybe a little extra passing game work. Not a ton, not enough to, get really excited about, but enough to help out. And efficiency, he's going to be a top running back once again this season. How about Aaron Jones? Aaron Jones, I did a video on him a while back and talked about my must-have pass-catching running backs, guys that could give you huge upside in the passing game. And I absolutely loved what he did last year and what he's really done his entire career in the passing game. Top 10 in all major receiving categories among running backs last year. And to top it all off, Devontae Adams is gone now. So you don't have that guy that Aaron Rodgers has leaned on in the past. Could it be Aaron Jones? Absolutely. Make sure that video, I've got a thumbnail over there for you so you can see what video it is, and it is linked in the description below. So for some of these guys that I've already talked about in depth, I'm going to link the videos down below. So after this one is done, you can go do your homework and check those out because some of these videos are so crazy in depth that this video would be 9 hours for me to get through. So go check out all of those videos. Look for the thumbnail. They're in the description down below. Catch them after this video. Leonard Fournette also happened to be in the same video because everybody was talking about his volume on the ground this year. No Ronald Jones. Obviously, that was going to be something that we saw tick forward even a little bit more, but no one really seems to talk about Leonard Fournette as a pass catcher, which is weird because he was great last season. Top 5 in almost all major receiving categories among running backs. There's no Rob Gronkowski. Chris Godwin, he's working his way back, but he's still not 100%. And on top of that, they've lost some linemen from last year. So while that might hurt some efficiency in the run game, it could mean some more dump-offs for Tom Brady to Leonard Fournette. And I know people like Rachaad White, and I get that and I understand, but Tom Brady has guys that he loves. And just like this video where I love these guys, Tom Brady loves himself some Leonard Fournette. Fournette's going to see pass catching work this year. He's going to see a lot of volume on the ground, and he's going to be a guy that is going to be essential to you winning fantasy football championships. What about a tight end? Well, my first tight end up, Dalton Schultz. I mean, if you've heard me talk this offseason, Schultz is extremely high in my rankings. I mean, he is a guy that at one point I had as high as number 3, 4. Now I've backed him up a little bit since then, but I still think we're going to see some great things from him this year. Last year he was 6th in targets, 3rd in receiving yard, or 3rd in receptions, 6th in receiving yards, 4th in contested catches. So he's a guy that wins over the middle. He's a guy that battles with those linebackers, nickel corners, anybody that's on him, he wins those battles. 3rd among tight end and contested catches last season. But now you've got Amari Cooper gone. Michael Gallup still is working his way back, not 100% healthy. And your offensive line this year is not nearly as good as it was last year. So for me, we take a look at it. We're going to need to get rid of the ball quickly. If you go watch a Dallas Cowboy game from last year, Dalton Schultz is the safety blanket, or the binky as Jake and Ethan would like to call it, of Dak Prescott. He is the guy that Dak is looking for in those critical situations. And this year, we could see more of those critical situations. A lot of volume coming up with Dalton Schultz. I'm not really investing a 1st, 2nd, maybe early 3rd round pick in some of these tight ends. I'm getting my running backs and wide receivers, and I'm getting Dalton Schultz a couple of rounds later and a very, very, very generous ADP. What about Mike Williams? I talked about him in a must-have video last season. Yes, he tapered off towards the end of the year, but the beginning of the year was absolutely insane. I mean, this is a guy, depending on what type of league that you played in through the first several weeks of the season, he was like wide receiver 1 or 2. He was amazing to begin the year. And the reason why, and I talked about that in the video that you can see here on the thumbnail, this is a guy that was utilized on a different route tree. Mike Williams known for going deep, big plays down the field. Last year, they opened up the entire route tree. In fact, he was a top 5 wide receiver on targets 0 to 9 yards from the line of scrimmage last year over the first 5 weeks of the season. And in that video that you see there on the screen, I actually went in depth and talked a lot about all of the different routes that he used to run. And we took a lot of stuff from NFL Next Gen Stats to break everything down for you in those graphics so you could see what Mike Williams was doing. So do they do that with him again this year? I hope so, because if they do, he is a guy that should outperform his ADP as well. Mike Evans, from one Mike to another. I tell you what, Mike Evans, I don't understand why nobody loves this guy. Now, there might be a few of you out there that do, but for a majority of the people out there, Mike Evans is just kind of like, yeah, I mean, I like him, but which doesn't make any sense, because Mike Evans might be one of the most dominant wide receivers that we see to ever play the game during our generation. Mike Evans is the only wide receiver in NFL history to have 8 straight 1,000 receiving yard seasons to begin a career. That's absolutely incredible. And now, for the first time in his career, he has back-to-back seasons with double-digit touchdowns. Oh, by the way, those were both with Tom Brady. And Tom Brady is back again this season. No, he's not on The Masked Singer. He's in training camp again, and he is ready to go. It's Tom Brady. He's always ready to go. Sorry, Jack Doyle. I didn't mean to steal your nickname there, but I did it anyway. Mike Evans is going to absolutely eat this season. Again, when I talked about it with Leonard Fournette, Gronkowski's gone. Chris Godwin isn't 100%. I mean, this is a guy, when you talk about Mike Evans, he's played on teams in the past where he hasn't had anybody around him to help him, and he's had Jameis Winston in his quarterback, and he's been a top fantasy option. I'm not worried about it at all. He is going to smash again this year. He should be your wide receiver 1 target at his amazing ADP of like late second, early third round right now, depending on what type of a league you're drafting in. What about Elijah Mitchell? Let's go back to the running back position real quick, because with Elijah Mitchell, a lot of people like all offseason long have said, I like Elijah Mitchell, but he's not a guy that I'm really targeting because Kyle Shanahan doesn't give the ball to one running back. It's false. I'm telling you all right now, that's not true. Is it true since he's been in San Francisco? Yes, but he also hasn't had his guy since he's been in San Francisco. Ladies and gentlemen, think back to when he was, way back when he was the offensive coordinator in Washington. Do you remember a guy by the name of Alfred Morris? I'm sure some of you that have been playing fantasy football for a few years targeted Alfred Morris for your fantasy teams because the dude had back-to-back terrific fantasy viable seasons under Kyle Shanahan. And he was the main back. Nobody else came close to him. What about those Atlanta years? Well, do you remember a guy by the name of Devonta Freeman? He was a top fantasy option, kind of exploded out of nowhere, and he was the main guy. No other running back on the team was close to this guy for 2 straight seasons under Kyle Shanahan. The fallacy that Kyle Shanahan doesn't or wants running back by committees and that he doesn't like it, that's not true at all. He doesn't. He just hasn't had his guy since he's been in San Francisco, and Elijah Mitchell is his guy. Devonta Freeman, Alfred Morris were both his guy. He went with both of them. 5 games to end the season last year for Elijah Mitchell where he had 20 or more carries in all of those games. And in those 5 games, only one time did another running back touch 10 or more carries, and that was Jeff Wilson, and he got exactly 10 in one of those games. I'm telling you, if you're even on the fence about drafting Elijah Mitchell this year, check out that video next to me. Go down to the link in the description after this video is done and watch that video, because I'm going to spit a whole lot of fire that you may not have been ready for, but you need to know right now. Going on to the next name that we got to talk about, Ramondre Stevenson. Oh my gosh, listen, Ramondre Stevenson, if you watched the channel last year, leading in, not even after the draft, but going into the draft, I talked about how much I loved Ramondre Stevenson, that he was not being talked about enough, and that if he went to the appropriate team, he was going to be a great NFL player, and he lands exactly where he needed to. Now, unfortunately, it was with Damian Harris as being the lead back, and Damian Harris took a ton of touches last year, but maybe we see Ramondre Stevenson cut into that a little bit, because last season, Ramondre Stevenson had an historically good efficiency season for a rookie running back. I mean, his 80.9 PFF grade from Pro Football Focus was one of the highest ever grades for a running back that they have given. And when you take a look at some of the statistics, again, maybe they don't add up to these huge numbers, but he had 31 missed tackles forced last year. That was only 6 less than Damian Harris. He had 20 runs of 10 or more yards. That was only 2 less than Damian Harris. Do you all know how many more carries Damian Harris had than Ramondre Stevenson? 70. 70 more carries. And Ramondre Stevenson stayed right there with Damian Harris in some very critical areas. Now, Damian Harris probably still going to get a lot of the goal line work, but Ramondre Stevenson is going to be used in the passing game this year quite a bit. And as long as he stays healthy and as long as he doesn't do anything to lose Old Bill's trust, Ramondre Stevenson is going to be one of the fastest climbing running backs in the league this season. Bookmark it. That was my stamp. Boom! Put it on there. James Conner. If you watched his channel last year, you probably drafted James Conner. We loved James Conner last season. No more Chase Edmonds. More volume. Absolutely love it. And he didn't get much last year in terms of volume in the passing game. And they brought in some guys to, help out with that. But he was very efficient. In fact, I already talked about him in that must-have pass-catching running back video. And maybe that's weird because you're like, why did he show up there? Well, it was because he didn't get much, like I said, but he was top 5 among running backs in almost every major efficiency category when it came to pass catching volume. The guy didn't do a whole lot because he didn't have a whole lot of volume, but on the little amount of targets that he did, he was crazy good. No more Chase Edmonds. He's now the lead back. No DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 weeks of the season. That to me spells a very hot start for James Conner. And you know what? If you don't trust that he's going to stay healthy all year, draft him, use him for 6 weeks, and then run his butt out of town and trade him from someone that you trust a lot more. James Conner is going to be a steal in your draft this year. And even if you don't use him all season long, I bet you can get a real nice piece for him mid-season. Gabriel Davis. I mean, we love some Gabe Davis around here, and we have for a while. Now, the video that I did on him, I actually pulled up the chalkboard. The teacher and me, or former teacher and me, wanted to break things down on the chalkboard for you. So I literally went through who's going to get the targets for the Bills, who's going to get this many, that many, broke down all the target distribution that I could see happening. What does Gabe Davis need to do with that? What does his efficiency need to be? And where could he finish? And with all those numbers that I broke down, if we can get Gabe Davis 120 targets, which really isn't that inconceivable, knowing that there is a plethora of targets that are gone with Emmanuel Sanders, and obviously, listen. Let's just say this real quick. Let's back up for a second. Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, they did some good things last year, but they're not there anymore. Gabe Davis is the number 2 now behind Stephon Diggs. And if we give him 120 targets and he can catch 70 of those, ladies and gentlemen, his ceiling is like wide receiver 15. I'm not kidding you. Go check out that video after this one and watch me break it down so you can get just as excited about Gabe Davis as your boy does. Now let's go ahead and start rounding out the rest of the video here. George Kittle is another guy that I absolutely love this season, because if you're somebody that loves top tight end production, but you don't want to spend a top pick on a tight end, George Kittle is your guy. The ADP is solid AF, and he is just as good as the other top options. I went through in that video and I broke down what his volume looks like. I even took out some games and said, hey, let's say he misses X amount of games this season because he does have some injury worries. For me, give me top 3 tight end production in every single game he plays, and if he misses time, I'll hit the waiver wire. Just go grab somebody that could score a freaking touchdown as a tight end and enjoy top 3 tight end production the rest of the season. Oh, and draft him like 2 to 3 rounds later than what you might have to draft Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews. I absolutely love George Kittle. I'm not worried about the injuries. I'll just find someone to fill in if he misses a game here or there, and I'll enjoy all the production that is in between. What about Rashad Penny? Well, a lot of people are Kenneth Walker fans right now, and I get it. Kenneth Walker is a really, really good running back. In fact, I did a video titled The Next 1.01 where I talked about guys that could make the leap from this year to the top overall pick next year, and I absolutely included Kenneth Walker as a dark horse candidate for that pick. But let's not forget Rashad Penny is there. Kenneth Walker is now dealing with a little bit of an injury bug. I love Rashad Penny. To see him break out at the end of 2021 was fantastic, because I've been a fan of him since he came into the league, but he hasn't been healthy. The explosiveness that you saw from Rashad Penny that made him the running back 1 in half PPR leagues, really any league, it doesn't matter. He was the RB1 from week 14 through week 18 last season. And during that time, the explosiveness that we saw, first with 5.52 yards after contact per attempt, 7.3 yards per attempt, 671 total yards, 6 total touchdowns. All of that you saw in that stretch is exactly what Rashad Penny could have been had he been healthy for his entire career. And let's face it, Chris Carson had some nude photos of Pete Carroll somewhere that he didn't want leaked, because no matter how much Chris Carson put the ball on the ground, he was always getting carries. He's gone now. He was a great player. It's unfortunate how his career ended, but he's no longer there. It is now Rashad Penny. He's on the last year of his deal. They are going to run the football an awful lot this year. They're trying to get back to basics. They're trying to get back to what they did well. Even if I only get 14 games out of Rashad Penny, those could be some excellent RB2 games that you could use in your lineup. Make sure that you back him up with somebody else, though. Make sure you have some good running back depth. Yes, he is injury prone, but I am buying into him staying healthy this year, and hopefully carrying it into a new contract with a different team next season. Joe B. Burrow, baby. I love me some Joey B. This video that I did here with Joe Burrow, I talked about him, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, and how high the ceiling is for that offense this season. In fact, last season, Joe Burrow was one of the most pressured quarterbacks. I mean, in terms of facing pressure, he was number 3 with the 3rd most amount of dropbacks facing pressure last season. And guess what? He was the most efficient quarterback at facing not only the blitz, but pressure last year. That is right. And in almost every single category that you look at that determines how good a quarterback did under pressure, Joe Burrow was like 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 and a couple. He was up there all the way. Now imagine for a second, close your eyes with me and imagine for a second that Joe Burrow has one of the best offensive lines in all of football. He isn't pressured anymore. And now he gets even more time to make plays with those dynamic playmaking wide receivers, Joe Mixon, and that great team around him. Joe Burrow could be in for a huge season. He is my guy. I don't want to spend a major pick at the beginning of a draft, but 5th, 6th round, if Joe Burrow's still hanging in there somewhere, he is my quarterback 1 on a majority of my teams in those drafts. What about Brandon Ayuk? You're going to notice a theme here. I love the San Francisco 49ers offense. In fact, Trey Lance, if you don't believe in him, start believing in him. He's my quarterback 7. That is right. He's my quarterback 7. I'm going all in on Trey Lance. I absolutely love this guy. He's got all the tools. He is going to be a fantastic NFL player, and all of the weapons around him are going to benefit. Weeks 9 through 18, after Brandon Ayuk got out of the doghouse last year, after he got out of it, he was the wide receiver 13. He was 7th in receiving yards, and he didn't get a ton of volume, but like everybody else on this team, they maximize what they do with that volume. Their efficiency is through the roof for almost every single player. If he gets 100 targets this season, which he will, he's going to be a safe wide receiver too. That would be his floor. His floor is low-end wide receiver too. If we get more targets and he stays as efficient, this is going to be a guy that could creep all the way up to high wide receiver 2 status. Deebo Samuel staying in that wide receiver 1, Brandon Ayuk being right behind him. I love Brandon Ayuk this season. And my last player to talk about, I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are 2 guys that I will invest both in this season. Give me both of them. I'll draft both of them. I'll play both of them because they're both fabulous at what they do. One isn't going to be regulated to pass catching. One isn't going to be regulated to running on the ground. They're both going to see a fair amount of snaps and touches. But the difference is this team in 2022 for the Green Bay Packers may not be as pass heavy as we have saw in previous years. They're going to have to rely on the run game more often. Aaron Rodgers is going to have to rely on A.J. Dillon. He got 187 carries last year. To see him go up to 250s is 100% conceivable. Even if you don't think 250, 225 should put him as a really safe running back 2 this season. I absolutely love what A.J. Dillon could do this year. We ran through those quick. I'm out of breath, and this video is out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you all tuning into this episode of the Fantasy Headliners. Down below in the description are links to all the videos that I talked about in this video today. Make sure you go do your homework and check them out if you haven't seen them as of yet. We need to get to 1,957 likes on this video so I can give away Jake's Nick Chubb jersey. Make sure you hit the like button, sign up for an account at Pristine Auction, leave a comment down below. And most importantly, if you're new here, subscribe to the Fantasy Headliners and don't miss a second of the fantasy football knowledge and the regular football knowledge and everything else that we will talk about here throughout the entire season. Appreciate y'all. Peace out. Stay safe and stay healthy. And I'll catch y'all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on 3rd down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. Fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that Chubb life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this headline. Headliner Nation.
I'm a headliner.